This podcast will self-destruct in 2 hours without warning. This is your final notice. Welcome to Dialog Choices podcast number whatever one it is. We're
79.
Here. It's been a while.
It's so many.
It's been a while since last time because there was just always a thing. There were many things. I went to BLFC. I got sick. Before that, there was just a combination of different people not being available at different times. And sometimes you're just like, well, this one person's not here. Might as well just leave. And then you just don't do the podcast.
Things are exponentially harder to get collaboratively done when not everyone does the same thing for a living.
Yeah. Life is hard.
So
Also time zones.
Life is a challenge.
If you want,
I thought it was a vampire.
No,
easily accessible art.
Vampires aren't real.
That's not true.
Of course they are.
If they're not real, there's so many movies about them.
Yeah, exactly.
Take that, atheists.
Exactly.
Checkmate, losers.
That's the one. I don't know any of the memes. My God, I'm being left behind by Generation X. Wait, that's the other one.
What does that mean?
If vampires weren't real, no one would talk about them.
I'm going the wrong direction with my generation.
Toaster's here. You thought that we were joking about podcasting, but we're actually podcasting. It wasn't a meme. No memes.
It's okay.
This is a meme-free zone.
You just missed like kind of a quick overview of a lot of really important media critique.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
We were all talking about how the entirety of media is being transformed by Marvel movies and will never recover, and all your favorite topics. No.
Mm-hmm.
We were mostly shouting. I'm still currently trying to pull the lawnmower cable to start the engine, and we're not there yet. We're still like trying to get the conversation to begin. We're good podcasters.
Yeah, because we sat down and we're like, we don't know what we're going to talk about. And Keith said, "Oh no, I know exactly what we're going to talk about."
I
and
did not say that.
Okay,
I have never said that. Every podcast, I'm like, I have no fucking clue what's going to happen. I don't know. Usually it just kind of starts and then someone says flypaper, and then like that just causes a tangent for 3 hours, and then I'm like, I guess it happened again.
Well, how is fly? I like flypaper, but what is that?
It's supposed to be wait, do you not know what flypaper is?
It's paper that flies get stuck to, and then you throw it in the trash.
Yeah, you hang like this sticky paper that tracks flies, and they get stuck to it and die horribly, but we don't care because it flies.
Is,
You've definitely seen it. You just don't call it.
I have had
Americans just have funny names for stuff.
There's been an ongoing meme that's horrible of like drawing various furry visual novel characters dying on like fly or glue traps.
Yeah, I was gonna say probably not fly traps, glue traps.
No, it's just like here's Chase Hunter dead on a glue trap, like he just got stuck and just was trapped there. It's just a horrible.
Yeah, I think glue traps are for like they're for like larger vermin, right? Like rats.
Yeah, no, they're upsetting.
Yeah,
don't Google that.
Let's not talk about that in this podcast.
No.
However, it's a good method to get rid of roaches. If you have roaches, do that to them. They deserve it, and honestly, they'll come back from it anyways because they don't die. They're literally immortal creatures sent from hell. Put them in traps like that, and then throw them away.
Give Toaster a superpower to ruin this podcast. All right, I'm looking at 9 emails for podcast questions. Give me a number.
Okay, that's better than the topic I was gonna suggest. I don't know. I was gonna be like, I've been on hiatus from streaming for a week, so I've been watching anime, a thing I don't normally do.
God, no.
Sorry.
I saw you stream yesterday.
Yesterday, I just ended my hiatus, but anyway, it's fine. Well, we can get that later. 6. Do number 6.
I just stared at this Discord like a deer in the headlights, thinking that the prompt to say a number 1 through 9 was going to cause a 20-minute tangent. I was like, "Here it comes! It's happening!" 3, 4. I miscounted. There's only 8. Anyway, that's still enough for 6.
Yep.
Oh, this is a long one. Okay, settle in, everybody. Player Choice and the Ethics in Game Writing. No, not that Ethics in Game Writing, by Alan Bettendorf. Hello, Keith and co. I hoped I have an interesting question for you. It's something I've been thinking about for a while now, and I hope I can finally put it to words. But it basically goes like this. At what point does providing player choice confer support for extreme ideologies or harmful actions? For example, Fallout 3 lets you capture people and sell them into slavery. Far Cry 3 lets you kill your friends in order to become the short-lived ruler of a nation. Spoilers. Tyranny lets you kill a baby. Based. Paradox Grand Strategy Sims lets you implicitly, and then in the case of Stellaris, rather explicitly, commit genocide on the basis of religion, culture, language, species. And this is a very long question.
Who submitted this question?
I think this is a really long question.
I think I already know the rest of the question. I don't have to keep reading it.
Yeah. The answer here. The answer here is boring. Like, the thing is that this is a really long question that has a really simple answer, which is that fiction is a place that allows us to explore and understand complex moral actions without the harm that they may cause in the real world. Yeah. Ergo, there isn't really a big deal in giving players agency to do horrible things, and in fact, we probably should let them do more horrible things so that they can understand the consequences of those actions. And the empathy, they can understand through empathy with horrible actions how terrible those things are and what effects that they have. And in narrative writing, it can often be very insightful and nuanced and give people a better understanding of why these things happen in the real world, if they can actually see and find meaning in really terrible stuff. So it seems like a really deep question that's like really big, and it's like, well, where does our responsibility start and end with like having these actions, and what does it do? And the answer is just like, doing a bad thing in a video game doesn't mean you condone it in real life, and in fact can lead to a more interesting narrative or
but I don't think that's
profound understanding. I think it. I mean, is that not?
I thought the question was from the developer's perspective.
Sure.
Are they condoning certain actions to us?
No.
At what point does providing player choice confer support for extreme ideologies or harmful actions?
Providing player choice, yeah.
My answer is it doesn't.
I don't think that at any point when KOTOR is like, would you kill this old man for dark points? It's like, yeah, I'm into that.
I think it depends.
I'm hoping
on the
people
story.
pick that one. We wrote this so that people pick that one because I want more old men to get killed in real life.
I think it's a semiotics thing. Like, you need to see what the rest in the context of the narrative is like actually building up and signifying. Like, you see this very often in bad faith discourse where you'll be like, well, at the end of the game, this person eats a baby, and that's what saves the day. So the developers here are saying that you should eat babies. And it's like, or maybe there's like more thematics going on here, and it's like a narrative where the analysis isn't just that surface level thing, and you should think about like, no, that's just this one extraordinary circumstance where eating this baby was valuable, not just from a plot level, but because it demonstrated something. And like, maybe this story wasn't very well written. It doesn't necessarily mean that the developer is condoning this, and their ability to put it in is condoning that behavior. I truly do not agree with that. I think it's a very, very weak argument to say that by allowing for choice, that developers are condoning it, because again, allowing choices is how we understand them, and giving space to explore those deals and ideals allows us to then condemn them more strongly and more holistically, because we have a better understanding of what those things are, and they can be used to teach a lesson to an audience.
Or at least a lesson from the developer's perspective, anyway. Because I think you're pointing out a very easy example to point out, which is the kill a baby or whatever. But if you think of other perhaps more abstract bad things that are allowed for players to do, and when I say abstract, I mean maybe not the actions themselves, but just sort of the general dichotomy that is presented. For example,
you're talking about essentially when the good choices in a game are reinforcing unstated assumptions about moral goods, like the police or colonialism or neoliberalism.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking
I don't think that's what the writer means. I think the writer does mean like doing things that are like more universally agreed to be awful.
Yeah. But I was thinking the other way around. I was thinking bad choices also themselves reinforcing a sort of skewed perspective of reality.
Because sometimes the bad option is based.
Well, well, that's always the best part when the bad option is based. But that usually only happens when the authors know what they're talking about. But I let me coach this in saying that because it's tricky to talk about criticism of this sort without sounding like I'm just ragging on the authors or games. I can enjoy games that are silly and that are perhaps not well thought. Their stories are meaningless. Even I can have a lot of fun and a lot of respect for the people who make them, and especially if it's big teams, because individual authors in a big team have less control over stuff. And I always go back to Dragon Age Origins, which is one of my favorite RPGs of all time. It's really fun. It's a really good game, despite having really bad things about the main storyline.
Every BioWare game.
Apart from perhaps Dragon Age 2. Perhaps, but probably not. Also, Dragon Age 2. But in particular, Dragon Age 1. And
is the public ready for Dragon Age 2 as the best BioWare game discourse?
No, it isn't.
I'm going to puke if we talk about that. We need to move on from that topic.
Please, my heart can't take
it. What I'm saying is there's a place in Dragon Age 2 where you find a society that ostracizes poor people, among other things. That ostracizes... there's other specifics that I'm forgetting, but it's the dwarves, and they have a caste system, and one of their castes is basically cut off from the rest of society. They're not allowed access to their normal services, and they're basically outlaws. They're outside the law. If you kill them, it doesn't matter. And the choice that you have in regards to that particular caste and the way you treat them, the choices are consistently about your individual attitude towards them, as if, are you going to be mean towards them or are you going to be nice towards them? And that is the ultimate choice in that particular area. Well, at least in the area that the cast is more prominent in. Later on, it consistently comes up throughout the main storyline of the dwarves, but generally speaking, it's not even considered the situation that they are basically not citizens. They're not like they're basically less than everybody else. It's a sort of it's a caste system in the worst form, and the game doesn't give two shits about that. It doesn't think about that, which is very in theme or on point with Dragon Age, because the same happens with the elves in the city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but is that
only the mages get to be oppressed in Dragon Age?
I think the mages are treated a little bit more interestingly, and there's more thought put behind it. But my point with the caste system of the dwarves is that because the developers allow the player to be mean to the dwarves, it assumes that is the biggest problem of a caste system, is that people are mean toward the people in the castes below, which is not what the biggest problem is. It's the systemic oppression that is put on people of the lower castes. And that's the issue. And to be fair, in particular, in regards to the main quest line of the dwarves, it sort of touches that a little bit, but it doesn't touch it nearly enough, because you have basically two people going up against each other. You can support neither, or you can support both, and they have either. Yeah. And you have a choice regarding that. So there's something more. But as a whole, I have more of a problem when the developers put me in such a flawed society and think that the worst I can do is be mean to the people who are already oppressed, because that just shows the same old misunderstanding of what racism is or what oppression is, which is just as a sort of extreme version of being rude to somebody, when it isn't.
I think you've actually just like identified sort of the thing here, which is that I think obviously this is a question of scope, right? I don't necessarily think if you are trying to like one human brain, right, or even scaled that up to a development team, a team of 500 people working on a game like this, in many ways cannot realistically simulate a full reality. There is no way to narratively cover every possible outcome, every possible idea, every possible systemic problem in a narrative. You need to pick and choose what you're doing. And that means, obviously, even in a perfect world, there will be things that are underwritten, which is fine. But you identify really clearly here that like the big issue isn't just an individual game or even an individual choice. It is the culmination and the breadth of a systemic set of works that create a understanding in a populace, right? And so I do get the point you're getting at, Colonel, which is like, by portraying this, you're making it seem like being mean is racism. But I do think it is kind of missing one sort of aspect of how people interface, especially with video games, but with media in general, which is that everything is through a layer of abstraction, in that, yes, racism is not just being mean to people. It is systemic, it is complicated, it has very messy nuances. But we explain that with the shorthand of being mean or being prejudiced against people. And for most cases, that can be a very effective way of just demonstrating that racism is bad or caste systems are bad, which for most people and in most examples allows them to then explore the very real and empathetic and understandable issues of racism, which are more complex and more nuanced. So by framing the question the way that this person has and hearing your response to it, I understand the complaint of like, yeah, there is some responsibility to be more in depth and educate people more. But also, I don't think a developer using a shorthand for something that is not their explicit narrative goal is necessarily them condoning or even really miseducating people on these topics. Because again, a work needs to be cohesive towards what it's trying to say very specifically, rather than just commenting on everything, because you can't create a realistic, fully educational, objective reality simulation in your game that explores all ideas, right? So but you can that's kind of where my point stands, right?
You can tell that's true, but you can tell on yourself and your perspective very easily, in fact. I'm playing right now, very excited too as well. Colony Ship, which is a sequel to the Age of Decadence. Not sequel, but it's the same studio, but it's just spiritual successor and all that. And it's a setting where everybody is just really influenced by Christian, neo-Christian. They're ostensibly neo-Christian cultists, and so the whole society is tinged with the religiosity and all that. And in many ways, it feels like a parody, a critique, as it were, of that, and it feels fresh and interesting like that. But at the same time, you can sort of feel that the writers or writer, possibly, because I think it's just Vince, really wasn't very interested in debating the sort of how the parody that the game builds applies to real life, and so. If you try to read too deep into, at least so far anyway, from what I've seen, if you try to read too deep into what's going on, you're gonna get cut off. You're not gonna see much application to real world, which is something that I felt. Outer Worlds, The Outer Worlds, that one, yeah. That I felt The Outer Worlds. Is it The Outer World? It is. It has got the D at the beginning. The Outer Worlds did really well, but while also keeping itself from trying to apply the rules to real life. But it did really well, because I think in that particular game, if you dig a little bit into what the motivations of the main characters are and all that, you can sort of understand or see an understanding that the writers had, how that applies to real life as well. And what I'm trying to say is, in the Outer Worlds, I always felt that, particularly, I forget her name, but there's this Nyoka, I think, in the Parvati and Sam. Those are the three major characters for me that they're all companions, so we didn't see them. Andrew, I'm sorry, but they all have very distinct attitudes towards society, and they never break the layer of living in the world. They're in the world that they live in. They never sort of jump out of the page into, aha, look at this. This is why you shouldn't be racist or whatever. Obviously, that's not the only theme. But the the way they're written, I think, reveals curiosity from the writers in how those characters apply to real world. In particular, Parvati being the sort of incapacity that, or lack of capacity that people have of criticizing the systems that they're in when they are just trying to justify the goodwill of the people that they look up to. Because, you know, just like you have a boss who's a very nice person, and they end up having to fire a bunch of people, and you're incapable of blaming the system that the boss and you live in, and instead just try to look for answers in no. But the boss did their best, and it's just how things are. But it's not just how things are. That's just how capitalism is. Because, you know, that's, you fire people if you can't pay them. That's how capitalism, right? And Parvati is very much in the same boat, whereas Sam is sort of coming at it from a very similar perspective in terms of Parvati, but in the sense that he just sees the systems as a must-be existence of reality. Sam understands the systems a little bit better than Parvati does, but obviously it comes from them from a matter of, I'm going to use the systems to my advantage. And in regards to Nyoka, she's like, I don't care really about this too much. And I don't remember the themes. I haven't thought of Nyoka very much, but I remember liking her character very much, her questline. But I'm
going to be super honest there. There's nothing in the Outer Worlds that stuck to me at all. I played that game. Don't remember a single fucking thing about it. Couldn't tell you a single character's name. And I played it paying attention to it. I forced myself to be engaged. Yeah. Not a single aspect of that game sticks to me. I remember the sound effect the pistol that you start with makes. That's just about it.
I remember the first planet, and then the game just falls off a cliff immediately, and it's just so flat.
It's so disappointing. The problem I had with Outer Worlds is that it is shallow in everything it does.
Yes,
it is. It's very much. Yeah.
You can clearly tell someone took the easiest route possible, and I don't know. I come from a very unique perspective because my entire playthrough of RPGs is genocidal. So I never come at the game with earnest, right? I come at it in a complete sociopathic manner. And so when you play a game like Outer Worlds and you can go through it that way and realize that like, oh, I am not even the crazy person in this story. The guy who wants to wipe everyone out. And like somehow this is just a normal part of society we live with, is just, every waking moment of our lives is equivalent to hundreds and hundreds of wars to be suffered every day. Is like, I don't know, man. This is a little extreme and cartoonish, and I don't think I can honestly like engage with even whatever attempt of a message you're trying to parlay in this story. Like, it's just such a it would have been easier if someone just straight up started the game saying like capitalists are bad and then just fades to gameplay. What? And then I would have been like,
I see what Colonel's saying with this too, though, where it's like, because of the way that this is portrayed and because of what it's trying to ostensibly show, like it does get sort of chained to the expectation that these narratives will pay off and condone certain things. And I think especially with those characters and some of their weaknesses or some even their successes, the things that makes some work versus others not, I do think there is a bigger conversation to be had about the realities of game making and just like the realities of human nature. And granted, this is a narrative, it's a controlled thing, but something that I don't really often see people acknowledge is that literally sometimes things just happen that change what is in a game, or just even in people's lives, that people will just like do stuff that they don't agree with just because they do. And it doesn't necessarily mean they condone or even respond like they agree with those things, right? And like using a good example, I think, of this is a game like The Outer Worlds, where like it had a troubled development, it had a rushed release date, and they crammed a bunch of stuff in, and it was focus tested into oblivion. And like, as a person who has done audience testing before, I have done audience testing before, and I have seen incredibly good films. I have been there for good games with interesting narrative stakes that do exactly what we're talking about, where it's like, let's explore the nuance and the seriousness of like societal expectations and systems of oppression. And like, this is how this story should end. We should be able to call out the boss and like for it, like being part of the system and being with the status quo. And then you put that in front of players, and players are like, I don't like this. I want the big sword that lets me fight them. The boss has a funny voice actor. I'm mad that he died at the end because we called him out for being a shill. That's not how I think it should be. And then the developer is like, well, this compromises our vision and makes it seem like we're condoning like the capitalist exploitation of workers. And then they have 2 weeks until a deadline and have to play something because they'll all get sued into oblivion, and their studio will shut down if they don't fulfill a contractual obligation. Just doesn't necessarily mean it's their, that they're condoning the unethical exploitation of workers by having to change their game like that. It does
someone raise the issue, though, that like art can condone something that the creator doesn't.
Exactly. So that's what I was just about to say is like, yes, the end result can unfortunately have contradictory semiotics or condone a thing that it seems to be building up against. That's just bad art. That's just what happens. Bad art exists. It gets made. It's very easy to identify.
It doesn't have to be bad art. In the like
I feel like if the art is
art can have a bad part, or you know what I mean.
Even I'm saying
if the art ends up primarily expressing an idea that no one making it meant for it to express, then it's probably bad art.
I would just say more along the lines of like, if a piece of work is contradictory without not even contradictory, but just like is clearly unfocused and unable to say something, for sure. To constantly do that. That's just like, when I'm not making a statement about like this is good art versus this is bad art. I'm just saying like they fucked up. Like that it's just a bad thing that happened, and like that's okay. It doesn't mean they necessarily condone that.
Colonel, at the end of the day, this entire topic is incapable of having a single definitive statement. You cannot apply anything to anything. Nothing can be sweeping. So obviously nothing's universally a rule.
My point was really just about you can tell on yourself as a writer or as a game developer, and about what you see as the problems of the world just by...
I'm just saying that when I say it's bad art, I'm not saying like, this is the rule, it's on the commandments now, and we can judge everything with this exact metric. I'm like, no, it's impossible. But it's super foggy stuff about art made by a billion people and trying to imply what it means. And we haven't even gotten to the huge gap, which is that like, we're poking at like the idea of dialogue choices and whether or not they condone good or bad thing, basically, and what they mean. But
that's the title drop for this episode of the podcast. The podcast dialogue choices, hard cuts.
The podcast actually just ended.
That we not focus on dialogue choices.
But like what we skipped past somewhat, which the question hinted at, which is the fact that like mechanical choices and limits there are also an element of this idea, and they can imply a bunch of interesting stuff. Some of my favorite types of videos about video games are about this exact topic. Like Errant Signal has a video I think called "Who Gets to Be a Civilization," or it might be Errant Signal, or it might be Kyle Calgren. I might be forgetting, but it's like just breaking down like over the course of the Civilization franchise.
I think it's
what counts as a civilization, what became a civilization, what stopped being a civilization in each sequel, like what does that say about like the background of the games and so on. Jacob Geller has the video about what Call of Duty has to say, which is this breakdown of this interesting situation where like you go into hostage situations and they let you murder the hostages, and they strangely will let you keep murdering the hostages over and over again until eventually, after you like fail you fail if you kill the hostages, but they do let you kill the hostages, and eventually they judge you by being like, really, dude, if you keep doing it. But they never let you shoot your teammates ever. Like those kinds of choices are interesting things to break down. And then like Dan Olsen has his video about like, hey, isn't it interesting how this series of mechanics might encourage you to do a colonialism, because the most mechanically consistent way to deal with these villagers is just to kidnap them. Like there's a lot of things to break down in how that stuff works, and like how this or that franchise will let you like sleep with hookers but then not murder children, or specifically sleep with hookers and then like murder them for their money. Like the age old like moral crisis article that is the GTA discussion that we all like put the bulwark up for and didn't engage with because we were defending against outsiders, but then was actually kind of worthy of some kind of internal like discussion about what it says ludonarratively to have these kinds of things from game to game. Because there are very interesting, very specific limitations and not limitations applied selectively, even down to like Mass Effect and the question of who gets to live and who gets to have a choice of who gets to live. Like my age-old gripe of like, every one of these levels, you have to kill every single enemy in it, even though they all work for the guy at the end. And at the end of the level, you choose whether the guy can be spared or not. And I'm like, I didn't get that choice until now, except for the one time they're all mind controlled by a plant. That's the only time you get to choose to try not to kill every person on the way to the boss, and then choose to whether or not to kill the boss. Up until then, all these people that work at Flux, they're irredeemable. Shoot all of them. They were they're bodyguards for a nightclub. Disgusting. Execute them. And then that's just part of the canon of Shepard in every timeline. He always killed every single person that worked at Flux. Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's
I think it's very interesting that you mentioned specifically the sort of inside conversation that needs to be had about the killing hookers in GTA. Because that's the same problem that Europa Universalis has, for example, with colonialism. I mean, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense from an artistic perspective for a game literally called Europa Universalis to condone gameplay-wise to condone colonialism and expansionism and genocide, because that's what the game does. And
it's the explicit exploration of this concept taken to form.
Exactly. Yeah. But the thing is, at least I haven't played the latest patches very much, but at least in the original form of Europa Universalis, I don't believe the game does that condoning with any sort of self-reflection whatsoever. Things like, for example, even the areas that get to be colonized, they're set by default on the default game. You cannot colonize Spain, for example. You can do other things to Spain because they're a different country, but you can't colonize Spain. And when you do colonize certain areas, the added there's two variables in general. There's other variables, but the two major areas variables that you get for each area are the resource, the major resource, because that happens for everything, but it's a considerable concern for colonies. It's the resource you get and how aggressive the indigenous population is in their number as well, but just in general, how much trouble you're going to have, how many armies you're going to need to send to their area to basically keep them down. You can genocide them, you can do other things, but even without getting into that aspect of killing just everybody, the basic understanding of the game is like, you go and colonize Africa, you go and colonize South America, because obviously it's Europa Universalis, that's in the title, and it's also a recreation of history, right? But the game doesn't self-reflect about that, I feel.
Yeah, that is interesting, because like the entire 4X genre and to some extent factory games are all to some extent reinforcing like a mixture of like colonialist and imperialist ideas with like the basic setup of like what your goals are and just what the trappings are of the genre are.
Resources are yours. Manifest destiny.
Yes, like that's like it's really rough to not interrogate what's happening in Factorio, for example, even though it's not really necessarily the point. Like it's you don't necessarily, but like what's going on. But what's very interesting there is that a game like Civ, at least the ones that I've played, are much more flat. It's like a bunch of a bunch of mascotted sports teams that wear the faces of historical figures, and they can immediately be role played like a blank slate character to do anything. So it's very interesting to hear that there's 4X games that lean heavier on historical context and then therefore add more limitations as a result that then reinforce that certain outcomes are more correct, essentially. Because that goes way closer to actually saying something that they may not be trying to say.
I think it's interesting as a puzzle design thing, like as it's trying to do these things, and whether or not it says anything with that is kind of, I think, it's going to reflect on historical circumstances and game design goals and things like that as well, which is kind of interesting.
Just the mere fact that they make a game called Europa Universalis, that they want to do that is telling of where people's minds are at. Not that it's bad to think of colonial history; it's definitely fine. But when what do you take away from it to the point where you like, let's make a game about expansion? The basic 4X setting is such a like that. 4X means exploration, expansion. What's the other one? Back me up here.
One of them's exploitation. I know that part.
Yeah,
that's the important part.
There you go. Yeah, but it makes sense. It's so based on.
It's like explore, expand, exploit is one of them.
Yeah,
X-rated.
It's worse. It's worse. Explore, expand, exploit, exterminate.
Exterminate. There you go.
That's what the X's
really
are.
what it stands for?
That's what it stands for.
I never played those fucking games, so I wouldn't know.
I'm talking about this.
Sometimes it just doesn't work out. You got to start fresh, brand new.
This is how Andrew plays every video game.
I'm talking about
when I walk into a building and it's on fire, it's not my job to put it out. It's my job to make it livable again, and that's what I'm gonna do.
I tried not to do this. I tried to have a religious victory, but Andrew turned them off and didn't tell me.
Religious victories don't count. They're not real.
It's the only game. It's the only game I've ever. It's the only game I've ever finished of Civ, and I was preemptively blocked from the victory I worked towards the entire session because Andrew turned it off and didn't tell me.
Why would anyone take the religious route? That doesn't make
literally
any
every
sense.
strategy game is about every strategy game that's done in that style where there's different ways of winning. You want to pursue a different victory condition than your opponent, or you're just going to buck up against the other person trying that one, and then you both lose, and the person that wasn't contested wins.
Yeah, but
more
I can't
like
nuke
Suburbia.
God, so I don't want to do
Suburbia?
Yeah, isn't it called Suburbia?
Let me just drop here because I've been trying to drop this for minutes and minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about this sort of telling on yourself on the back of watching the phenomenal video by Jessie Gender on Starfield. You should go and watch her video because it's called the cyclical failures of Bethesda's terrible writing. Please go watch it. It's awesome. And Starfield, I haven't played Starfield, but it does sound like Starfield also very much tells on itself in regards to precisely the same problems that the Outer Worlds tackles, and it's just like night and day. That's why
you watch a video essay about a thing that you haven't played. That's always the takeaway.
Yeah.
One of the other things
it
about
sure
this,
sounds like this thing
one,
is the thing that people said it was.
One of the things about this that I think is sort of interesting, though, is that I think a lot of this is fueled by like the discourse mill, right? And like I always want to wonder. Obviously, we are talking about this in the like corporate personhood sense of like Bethesda's bad writing tells on Bethesda, the institution.
The lukewarm mistake.
Yeah, and it's like it's very interesting though because like we often discourse these things and talk about what these games condone and then reflect them back on certain people without, and this is not a like you're canceling the wrong person thing, but just like without understanding the realities of like who actually wrote these things, who made these decisions, what do these things do. And it ties back to what Keith was saying about like art can say a thing that it is not intended to say, or art can say things in context separately. But it's very interesting to watch how people consume art out of a context or out of an understanding of how it was made or who made it or who was even talking in it, and then use that to critique other art or other things made under similar banners, when oftentimes those things can be saying like very contradictory or different things because they are technically made by massively different groups of people with different goals. And on that note of telling on yourself and like what is an author's intent or like what is being even said, I think this is also an issue of player engagement and understanding, in that you could literally have like, and I'm just going to make up a game here, so it's going to obviously be kind of a straw man, but like you could make up a game, a version of Europa Universalis, where it is extraordinarily heavy-handedly self-reflective, and it wants to say colonialism is bad, and it's very on the nose about it, and it even could become a fucking terrible, dumb game to play that would suck, and it would be so obvious to anyone with a brain, and there would still be people who are like, this game isn't critical enough, or this game is saying this is actually good. There's just art is subjective. This is actually condoning this. So there just is no actual platonic way to like get to that ideal state of a piece of art that objectively condones or does not condone a thing without you just taking a good faith read in something, right? Like you just have to engage with something and understand the reality. And sometimes that means acknowledging, yeah, they didn't think that hard about it, and it doesn't really reflect on me morally for playing the colonialism game. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it sucks. It's a bummer. Oh well. Like
I'm definitely there with you. I think there is at least one game that I know, a 4X game that is the game that you suggested. It's called Humanity.
Yeah.
And it is a little bit self-reflective. But it is basically, in terms of mechanics, it's the same. It's the genre. Like you're making the game for the people who want to do the colonialism, which is fun in video games, but not in real life. Don't do that.
It's just that it's still worth pursuing, figuring out how to best communicate ideas and so on, because it's just the basis of art, essentially.
Yeah. It's like shooter games in general. Like you don't want to shoot people in real life, but in video games it's fun. But it's fun because we live in a society that glorifies
that sort of... discussing like bad art. There's equivalents of like Ready Player One, a thing that weirdly ends on a strange moral about how we need to log out more and see the world more or something. But the entire book is about somebody hyper fixating on 80s memorabilia and being extremely plugged in at all times and becoming a billionaire and having a great time the whole time. And then weirdly at the end, he like knew it was time to put a moral here, but didn't actually write a book about the thing the ending kind of hints at, and it just is a shit show.
Yeah, that's like a good example, though, I think, of a piece of media as well, and this is why like holistic criticism is really important. I think that issue of like the themes not working in that book, it's a symptom of a bigger issue with that work, which is just on its head. It's not well written. It doesn't understand how stories work. It doesn't communicate anything. Even if Ready Player One wasn't about that, it still would not be a good novel. Even if it was trying to say, actually, we should fixate on the 80s more, it wouldn't be a good book about that because it isn't well written and doesn't know how to communicate things. So it's just like, it's one of those issues as well. And when I was talking about like this idea of like a platonic ideal of communicating things, like, even in a perfect world where we had a story that could perfectly beam a message into a player's head that was completely universally understood, there would still be people drumming up discourse about it on the internet and engaging with it in bad faith, which I think is also a big other side of this ethical, what responsibility do players and creators and developers and designers and stuff like that, what do they have in their actions that they take in games? I think there is also a question of like, how much responsibility does someone consuming art have to read the art in better faith or in good faith and actually engage with the media and try to figure out what it's saying? And that goes on both sides of the critical discourse debate of like trying to figure out if something is bad or trying to champion something that is good, right? Or like figure out what something is saying that's helpful. There is a true... It's just a very pointed question, I think, that is in a way itself also not very self-reflective of how people experience media in general.
Yeah, it gets dangerously close to like the strange kind of discussions of like not, this isn't exactly player behavior, but it's like, was it like Boyfriend Dungeon, where it's like the creator was being treated like they were endorsing the bad things that were happening in the game, as if them being bad wasn't the point of them being in the game, because there is like
we also saw that with stuff like Dream Daddy and The Last of Us and like stuff like that. Like it just plagues every piece of media.
There's a strange way of discussing media where people discuss all of the bad things that happen as if those are the things being endorsed by the media, as if like bad things happening in media isn't like a basis of how half of storytelling works. Like I'm reminded of watching Disney films with my stepmom, and how she would always say like, why does the bad part have to happen? Why does it have to get sad and mean and like literally like questioning the premise of
shouldn't have killed Mufasa.
Like joke. Like what? Sincerely, like she was like, why did she was indirectly saying basically like, why does the conflict happen in these movies? And I'm like, this the plot. That's when the story. There's nothing. Did you want the Lion King slice of life fiction? Like
that's what Lion King 2 is about.
Just to be a hangout where nothing happens.
Like, people are just bad at that. Yeah, I mean that's the whole basis of like the Four Girls Do Nothing anime genre of
Four Girls Do
excuse you,
of like moe genre. No, that's literally
that's what it's
called.
It's literally a genre. Wait, I don't know about this.
No, this started back then. I'm gonna talk about this. The cute girls doing cute things is actually a change of what it was originally fucking called on image boards when K-On! Was coming out, which was 4GDN, 4 girls do nothing.
Oh my god,
this
I've never heard of this.
Yeah, it's an entire it's a epithet for referring to the moe and waifu genre of like, let's just watch peace out media. And like this has backgrounds in things like Aria, which is a show that has, in manga, blah blah blah, that has like more merit to it than I am giving it credit for. Like these shows are about things, but the thing that draws people to them is just the fact that it's like cozy, like hygge media where you're like in a comfort zone. And some people like that, and it's fucked up and weird, and I don't get it, and it freaks me out. I don't like it at all.
Damn, what the fuck?
I hate it. Oh, I need conflict in my stories. I mean, I like some plain slice of life stuff. But for example, I'll use a really good example of this. There's a really great movie that I watched recently. I say recently, it was like 4 years ago when it was coming out. But I watched Jim Jarmusch's Patterson, which is literally a movie about Adam Driver living with his wife, who wants to like buy a ukulele and get into ukulele, and he's a bus driver who on his lunch break writes poems. There's basically no major conflict in the story. The overarching theme is just that sometimes life can be good and you just got to give yourself some space and deal with it. And that movie is excellent, and it has a really great theme, and it's super cozy. But things happen in it. Like there's like an actual point. It communicates that message through the use of minor conflicts that then have resolution that are meaningful. So long story short, though, there are people out there who just literally never want conflict to exist.
Yeah.
And will write off whole narratives because they're like, I don't understand. Why did Elsa have to flee to the Ice Kingdom? Couldn't she just have explained what happened? And it's like, all right,
get her out of there.
Like, okay, I guess. Like, you just don't understand that stories happen sometimes.
Or the idea of the story being about stigma.
My thing is inverse. Like that would frustrate me because it's unreal. Like no one would do that. Like a normal human reaction would be like, yeah, I'm gonna kill that crazy ice lady. Like, where did she come from? Why does ice come out of her hands? Like, I read history books. I know what the people like that were like back in the time. They would have definitely killed Elsa. No, you can't trick me.
What's funny is that a version of this happens all the time in the online sphere that is OC comics. You make your little OCs and they hang out.
Yeah.
And
they have to be like perfectly smooth.
I'm saying like there's a specific dichotomy you can witness between these two ideas, the lack of conflict slice of life thing, and then the idea of what a narrative actually is. And like you can see like for example, like oh god, what's his name? Someone Duncan and Eddie, for example. Like you have these comics where somebody makes their OCs and it's like it's about the way of storytelling and expanding the characters and also getting practice making comics and so on. You make a bunch of little 4-panel comics of your characters hanging out and having little interactions, and very noticeably these artists will have just completely standalone comics that aren't even worth numbering because like there's no real continuity or direction to most of it, and they're just one off when it's all slice of life. Then the moment it's time to tell a story, suddenly there's conflict, and suddenly it's like a 12-page comic that happens consecutively, and it's a series specifically, and then they snap right back to slice of life, and it's back to just kind of chilling and not going anywhere, and having a cute joke or something, and moving on. And that's like just an age-old element of how these have worked forever.
Yeah.
How did we get here from Far Cry 3?
I don't know.
It's based on the choices. It's because we were talking about authors and their art and giving people choices in that art to do bad things. And does that bad? Should we not let that? But then we talked about how that could be a representation of like the writer and their intention.
Yeah, it's too complicated to have an answer, because like anytime you put a choice in that you're not happy with, you can always specifically explore the thing.
It's fine to do that.
I have an idea.
There is no yes or no to this. No, I do not think there's a clear yes or no. I think you absolutely can put things in you endorse specifically.
Sure,
just see every edgy anti-SJW game made in response to any kind of like social movement, and very quickly you get people doing unethical things for fully endorsed reasons in games, as opposed to nonsensical absurdist reasons or whatever. Like it's not always meaningless, and it's not always completely meaningful, and it also can be in many cases the reason why these choices are put in is to specifically propose that concept and then hit you with consequences for making that choice, and not just in the way that like you get punished, but specifically like interrogating the meaning of making that choice and when it goes. And that's specifically what a lot of Disco Elysium is really good at, is having a bunch of upsetting choices and upsetting characters you can play and people you can meet that can go in wildly different directions. And like I've never gotten there specifically, but I've heard that like the fascist like DLC.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about
is like a very it's supposed to be like oddly like empathetic and sad and just like a very like
it's incredibly interesting, and the trophy statistics on it say that like only 2% of people ever pick that. Like it's genuinely sad because it's a very interesting playthrough that like confronts really interesting ideas. And unfortunately, the audience is just not there for it. Everyone universally just plays as a communist. Sorry, cop. That's it. That's all anyone does.
It was me. I was gonna probably be an apocalypse cop fascist when I play my director's cut playthrough eventually. Just wild opposite. Will hate me. It's gonna be upsetting.
This is all making me think of a really specific choice that I think. It was given to me, and I think I wouldn't pick it again if I could. And it was the choice to pick this question to answer, and I think we should answer question 3 now.
Wait, what? Why did you say the sentence that you said in the sentence?
He's got superpowers. I gave him superpowers. Now we're on question 3. Ryan asks, how old were you when you found out what you are? And when did you come out? How did it go for you?
1.
Found out what I was. Well, when I was born as a human being, I realized that I was human and this would be my eternal flesh prison.
I was born a poor black child. It's from The Jerk. I lose my mind for a minute.
I don't know. Probably like
at age 5, I was born without a face.
So like as soon as I started school, I realized, wait a second, everyone else is wrong. And then I just never recovered.
And then you came out as a sociopath.
Yeah, and then I was like, wait a second.
What are you coming out as? What is the implication here?
The implication
I was right now years old when I learned Andrew killed JFK.
Whoa.
He's coming out as a sociopath.
When I joined elementary school, I realized that I was the imposter. And then I had to pretend. So,
joke's on you guys. I was that baby.
Yep, I don't know. It's obviously that's a no question for me. I get no answer. Sorry, guys. Yeah.
I've always had a really strong sense of. Oh, go on, Colonel. Sorry.
I was trying to think of the year even. I don't remember exactly because it was sort of a progressive kind of thing. It took a little while, but I was around 29 or 30. Just because it took forever for me to even get exposed to the concept of aromanticism. I can't really point anything to before that, as in I realized I didn't have romantic feelings towards other people, because that was what made me so sort of internally frustrated, as it were, or sort of the internal tension of me is just that I knew I should, or I knew I perhaps at least, it's the whole pressure of society of that's what people feel. That's how people feel like, right? And for me to not experience that and to not want that created a lot of strife, and I just interpreted that as loneliness, which was not. It was not loneliness. It was just me. It was self-hatred, basically. And then at the age of 29 or something, I started reading more. And I realized, wait a minute, that could be me. It took a little while, and then I was like, yeah, that is me. And so yeah, it was. I'm 36 now, so it's been a while. Yeah. As for being bi, that's a slightly different thing. I think at the age of 13 or 14, I was already knew more or less what I was attracted to under certain circumstances, but that also played a little bit of a part, or aromanticism also played a little bit of a part for me, because if I had ever had a crush on a guy, I would have realized things a little bit faster. But I just never had a crush. My crushes are weird. I think I said it once like that in this very podcast, and they are weird in the sense of the way I feel and yeah.
I've always had a really strong sense of self in the fact, and this is going to sound weird, but I just have truly never questioned myself or my own experience. Like I don't lack that kind of confidence.
Toaster was born with a character sheet and followed it to the T.
Yes, exactly. Like for me, so like there have always been there have been like experimentations or like phases I've gone through where I'm like, okay, maybe this is how I label myself, or maybe this is like what it is. But the core feelings that I have felt have never changed, and I've always understood the nuanced depiction of myself internally, right? So like even when I was a very young child, like obviously I didn't know it was like sexual attraction, but like seeing a man and a woman married or kiss in a movie, I remember like the first time I saw like lesbians exist in a piece of media, or like gay people exist in a piece of media, like seeing my mom like watch The L Word or like, you know, Will and Grace or whatever. Like there was never a moment where I was like, oh, you can do that too. It was just like, oh yeah, that exists. Like I put that together. This was a thing that was on the list of possibilities given the previous evidence that I had. This is normal and I understand it. And when it applied to myself, again, my perspective was never like, maybe that's me. Is that what these feelings are? It was truly just, yeah, like Link is interesting. I could see myself kissing Sheik. Why does Banjo make me feel special? Like, you know, like things like that. Like, just like it was never a question of like, I'm feeling weird about Richter Belmont. Why do I feel this way? It was simply just, this makes me feel a way. And then as I grew older and got the words to more clearly identify that, like, yeah, there was just like no doubt in my mind. And so literally zero doubt, right? But where, I think I might have talked about this before as well, where my doubts have come in is just, for lack of a better word, my understanding and learning what the shape of these things are, right? So when I was in high school, I think I've talked about this a few times, I was pretty openly queer. Like it was not a hidden fact. I think I came out to most of my friends as like being queer when I was like 12 or 13. I was in 5th grade. I don't remember when that was. And then, but that was more of a just like we were sitting at like lunch and someone posed a question in a really dumb way. You know, the way that like kids do when they're trying to do a gotcha, where they were like, would you ever like, if your soulmate was a boy, would you marry them? And my answer was like, yes. Like the question defeats the purpose that you're asking. If the tautology is that they are already objectively my soulmate, then yes, whatever preconceived notion I have is already defeated. And they were like, oh, you like guys? And I was like, sure. If I like a guy that much, then yes, I would like them. Like there's no weirdness to that for me, you know, like that's not a strange thing. But over time, you know, I dated girls in high school. I had one really long relationship that lasted like 5 years into college. But like over time, I just was like, yeah, the shape of my love isn't going to uniformly apply to women. Like this,
Damn.
there are incompatibilities here. There are incompatibilities here that maybe won't be present with men, regardless of my individual ability to have been in love with or been in a relationship with this person. So let's focus on that instead. And then that fit better, and just reaffirmed everything which I already knew. And then I came out to my mom. My mom officially, she'd always known because I was pretty openly queer, but I think it was a non-factor to her because I had dated a girl for so long. So when I broke up with that girlfriend, I came out to her officially. I was like, I think I like guys more. Like, this is just where the needle's falling. And I thought she was going to be really upset about it. And she just she literally read the message, left me on red for 6 hours. And I was like, oh no, she's going to disown me maybe. My one moment of doubt was what is going to come of this? Did I just open a can of worms? And she messaged me later and was like, sorry, phone died, couldn't find a charger. Anyway, let me know if you need anything. And I was like, okay, are you fucking kidding me? And then later my dad, again, found out I have a weird relationship with my dad. Not bad, we just didn't really know each other very well for a very long time. Complicated, but not bad. Just weird life circumstances. And when he found out, he just didn't, he doesn't care. He just does not give a fuck at all. It's completely not something that and not even in a prejudiced way, just literally not something that he thinks about. He's just I don't care. He likes brewing, so it's whatever, it's not a problem.
It's the platonic ideal future world. You're living in it.
literally, exactly. It's that utopian future of 7 gay characters in a visual novel where the assumption is just whatever, So yeah, that's my story. And it's the same thing with
believe
gender.
You live in BioWare.
Yeah, I do. I live in that universe. I am the player character. The world is my oyster.
Yeah.
But the same thing goes with my gender. Because I had transgender friends growing up, as a child in school, going through transition in the early 2000s.
That's wild.
Yeah. And I remember there were multiple at my high school, actually. My middle school as well.
What?
Yeah. But it wasn't. So when those questions of gender and gender education came up, for me, there was never a moment of me wondering if I was, male or female, guy or girl, something in between, non-binary. This is one of those things for me as well that is for my experience with gender probably frustrates a lot of people who struggle over it, where it's people are gender is a social construct and why aren't we interrogating it? And then I'm just a dude who likes blue jeans and Slim Jims. That's just me. Sorry. There's no question. I just ordered the boy toy. That was the one I liked.
Yeah.
I have zero need to even interrogate it. So when someone comes to me and they're like, don't you think it's weird that only guys are blue coded? There's there's a part of me that's yeah, that's a social construct. But there's also a part of me that's yeah, I don't really question that, and I don't really need to.
And why is every furry a blue dog?
I mean, the idea.
Okay.
I think the better question is, would it bother you if a guy wasn't wearing blue? It's the more important question, and the answer is always I don't care.
Pink
I don't care.
Is a really exactly. Nice color.
I don't care.
So many people look good in pink.
Everyone looks good in colors. That's the whole point of them. We didn't make colors.
Yeah.
I'm really mad whenever I go to the mall.
White and brown.
I get actually mad when I go to the mall and I'm like, what kind of fun, cool clothes can I get at the clothing store? And it's would you like a polo shirt, a button up, one of the 4 bands that get to have band shirts here for some reason? And I'm like, what the fuck are these clothes? Why can't
That's
we?
The best part.
Why did we wring fun out of the world?
We didn't. We only wrung fun out of the consumer world.
It's just so
all of my business attire
it's just genuinely
is
hard to find
undershirts.
fun clothes.
Yeah, they're everywhere. You just have to stop looking in the places where everyone goes, because everyone else has given up. Like, you just have to go find those.
Sure, but I live nowhere, so it's genuinely hard. Like I said,
the internet.
The internet sucks because you can't. It's such a pain in the ass to tell if something is like actually real clothes or weird like sewn together facsimiles that are shipped from China and are weirdly discounted, and like you open it up and the inside is just like the reverse of the outside. Like it's just like all the patches and pieces just sticking inward because it's just like a fucking store. Like it's a, what do you call it? It's like a facade for a store. Like it's just the outside is supposed to look like that. That's the whole goal. The inside looks like scaffolding, but on clothes, and it disintegrates in 5 seconds. I'm like, why did I do this? And then also the sizes are a nightmare. You can sit there and measure tape yourself, and then wrong. None of it fits. Fuck you. I hate ordering stuff online.
But
you should be able to go to a fun store. You can go to a fun store and try things on.
Well, sure, you can try things on, but
all the places where you can try stuff on and they sell stuff correctly are just the same 5 items of clothing over and over again because men aren't allowed to express in society. Like, this sucks. That sucks. That's. I have to find like weird bootleg stuff and hope that they don't just run with my money and they're a real store, or I buy stuff at Macy's and I look like a golfer. Those are the only options. It sucks. I hate it so much.
Yeah, there's a lot of you have to also find like men's specialty stores. When you get to stuff that's like hyper focused only on men, you'll find a lot more variety. When it's trying to appeal to both men and women, or specifically appealing to all ages of men or all ages of boys to men, then things get really ugly. Then it's so funneled down to like the bare minimum shit. Every shirt might as well just have like a cup of beer on it, be colored blue with white text that says America. Like, it's like, oh, okay, I want.
The other thing, we hate fun. That's why we all drive great cars.
I mean, the other thing with that we're not talking about.
Take turns.
Is good clothing. Like, if you want good clothing that isn't that patchwork, especially online, like this is just how it is. It's fucking expense. Clothing is fucking expensive.
Yeah.
Keith, don't say that. Don't say that because then you're going to get people who submit you to Queer Eye, because that's something that other people nominate you for. Your post office box is on the internet.
I need to be the concept of Queer Eyed, but not literally Queer Eyed.
Yes.
I'm going to submit you. I need Stephanie to dress me.
Submit you. Yeah. We'll submit you to Queer Eye and get them to come in, and you'll have a motivational talk.
I just need to go to San Francisco with you and Stephanie, and you just dress me.
I kind of want to see.
Have me dress you. Have Andrew dress you.
I kind of want to see
Andrew's
the interaction.
Just gonna give me fucking floral button-ups.
What?
I know Andrew's thing.
What? Yeah. What's wrong with floral button-ups?
It's one genre. I already have 2 button-up flamingo shirts.
What do you mean is one genre? There's a million flowers. There are so many flowers. You could look different. You could any color you want, any style you want. There's a flower for it. That's the best thing about flowers.
I want more interesting ideas, like straight up, like different, like cut styles and so on. Like I'm
not
a
monster. I own other pieces of clothing. Like I don't just like dress to like get eaten by a herbivore. It's the idea is that there's like, if you're gonna have a patterned shirt, why go for something that is like, I don't know, a square piece in the center when you can have like a nice pattern around?
Rest to be eaten by an herbivore.
Well, I mean, why else would you wear flowers on yourself? What's the point? There's no. It is a nice consistent pattern with multiple options of colors, and people can't judge you. If someone comes and is like, "That's a flower," yeah. So there's a lot of them outside. You've never seen a flower before? What are you, an idiot? Like, you never. Easy. But also, I think it's important that you wear different types of clothes, like button-ups and t-shirts and like tank tops. Like those are, and mixing and matching, like buttons and tank tops and blah, 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 blah. Like those are the parts that tend to not go well in most stores.
Working like, a feather boa.
Yeah, but I mean, like the frustrating thing about fashion is that you have to do a lot of work to put multiple pieces not from the same place or even the same like vicinity.
Oh, it's so hard. It stresses me out.
And make it work. It's
funny because if anyone could in this group pull off a feather boa or like what are they called, a Hawaiian.
I'm just gonna show up to MFF dressed as Manon.
Oh, a lua.
Is that what they're called? The flower necklaces? I feel like I have seen you. A lei, thank you. I feel like Andrew could wear one.
I would wear one in a heartbeat. I would take every single other person's lei off the plane from Hawaii if I could. I'd just be like, yeah, just put them all on me. I'll wear them on my arms.
Andrew is the most fucking tiki luau party backyard barbecue guy I've ever fucking met in my life.
Andrew's extremely tropical. Andrew turned into a tropical barbecue dad the moment he hit 30.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I gave up. I realized, like, look, there's only so much. There's only so much I can try to do to fit in.
You tried so hard. You like. This is actually what Andrew's coming out is that he lived for 30 years as a smoking hoodie edgelord with gel in his hair, and then instantly flipped over into being a tropical barbecue dad.
From Wojak to tropical Ned Flanders.
He did. He let his colors fly.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun.
At some point you do have to like concede, right? I think there's I had a lot of frustration in especially traveling abroad and going like, I look horrendous. Like I am absolutely like, if someone wanted to, if there was a lineup, right? You have an entire picture, say like, let's take Tokyo. You take Tokyo, you take any street in Tokyo, take a picture of it. If you zoomed in, you'd be able to find me. I'm the dumb, ugly dressed American wearing a sweatshirt and pants. Like everyone else had good fashion, even if they weren't in suits. They they had like colors and they had like flows and like different stuff. Nope, there's the one guy wearing pants and a sweatshirt and probably a baseball hat and a cigarette in his mouth. Wow, yeah, just couldn't blend in more, huh? Like awful. It works in America because everyone's sad and sour, but it doesn't work anywhere else. Everywhere else like enjoys living. Everyone
here is numb.
Yeah, it's just like you go outside anywhere else, everybody's like, yeah, I'm just wearing what I like wearing. I like it just looking like this. It's like, oh, I didn't think that was an option. I wasn't allowed to do that here. That was not that wasn't like the standard operation. Yeah. So it's just more fun that way. I don't know. Plus it's
I just made a habit of like paying more attention to what women wear, and I'm just like, I don't want that, but I'm also frustrated that you get that. Like, it's not the specific option. It's the fact that there's so many wildly different types of clothing. And I'm like, that's just not what we're socialized to do as men. It sucks. That's not even like in the cards.
It's because no one tells them they look good when they don't wear crap.
I do never get compliments until I'm online.
You know what? I get compliments.
And then I don't know what to do with them.
In the worst
like, what
ways.
The fuck?
I get compliments on the things I don't want compliments on. Like, I was at like Home Depot once and someone gave me a compliment on my mustache. I was like, I don't want that.
When I had a mustache and when I literally dressed like Ned Flanders, people are like, you look so handsome.
Right? Like, okay, well, great.
My mom once told me I looked like Tom Selleck, and I was like, okay, Mom, please don't speak to me ever again.
I kept getting compared to Salvador Dali, and I didn't know what to do to that.
Yeah, like what?
There was a certain like Dali,
like not to sound unfair, but it's really crap that women are allowed to get like one word compliments, and men have like compliments on the dumbest shit. Like it's always an explanation about why it's justified to compliment you. I don't want that. Don't tell me that. The more you specify on what the compliment is, the worse it gets for me. Just be like, hey, looks good. I don't care what it is. Thanks. I appreciate it. But when you're like, hey, this specific thing about you looks good. No, don't do that. Don't. Because now I'm gonna have an entire problem about this. Why? Why that specific thing? That was the only thing about me? That was it? Great. Cool. Fantastic. Love it.
You're so self-conscious about that.
Nice.
Though.
No, it's just eyebrows.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you say like, yeah, you have nice eyebrows. The first thing someone goes and does is why? Why the hell?
I'm so bad with
everything.
Self-image.
Like I don't know if you. It just feels like to me when you specify a specific thing you're complimenting someone on, unless it's something that they want to be, right? If someone's like, "How's my hair?" and you're like, "Yeah, your hair looks great. You have a good haircut." Like unless they're specifying about the topic they want to compliment on, just give general overarching compliments.
traumatic flashback to high school when someone just shouted across the lunch table at me about my teeth, and I was like, "What the fuck am I supposed to do with this?"
What do you do with
the
that?
fuck did you say to me?
That's aggressive.
Yeah,
it was so startling.
I'm
I'm like, this is so specific, and I don't know what to do with this. What the fuck do you
that's
say?
That's what it feels like. But right, if you're just like looking good, Keith, you've just been like, okay, well, I'll just take that. All right, fine.
That's never happened.
Well, yeah, but if it did, that's the point. But if it did, you would remember that, or sorry, you would take that in, but you wouldn't need to remember it so specifically. Like when someone compliments you on a specific item, when someone does that, then it retains in your brain. Like, why? Why did they do that? You can't just take the compliment because it's too odd. You need to create a compliment that is easy to take, easy to swallow. If I have to chew my compliment, I don't want it anymore. I'm gonna spit it out.
You don't have to chew. You just degust it for a little bit, and then
when someone says nice mustache, my first reaction is I'm going home and shaving this. My second reaction is what specifically was it? The style, the thickness, the color, the patchiness? Like, is it? Like, there's so many things to interrogate about a piece of facial hair that means absolutely nothing to me. Whereas, like, I didn't think about my facial hair. I let it grow. I did nothing to it. Maybe I trimmed it to not, like, get in the way, but it is not this isn't going to change the course
trim it to not get in the way.
But clothes I take specific care about, or like altogether packages, right? It's hair, clothes, shoes, all that stuff. So when it's one singular nice compliment, great. But when it's hyper focused, it's like, why that? Why?
People commenting on my physical appearance is so rare that I'm always just completely unprepared for the comment and don't know what to say, good or bad. Like, I had a really bad interaction with my
yeah, thanks.
That's what I said.
I had a bad interaction at work where it's like it's a double whammy of like several things. It's like one is that I was working at my cubicle job at the water board, so like I would see someone like once a week. Like almost never did I actually interact with another person. I just came in, worked all day, and then left. But my boss was technically like one cubicle over. It's just we didn't interact. But every now and then he would walk over for some reason or other. And in this case, he walked over, and I'm inherently just startled by him arriving because I interact with so few people that just the sudden engagement of social interaction was genuinely startling. And he's just like, growing out the beard, huh? And then I just stared at him, dumbfounded, processing what he was saying. And and then after a moment, he's just like, oh, you didn't like that. And he said that out loud, and I'm like, what face did I make? What was that interaction like from his perspective? I don't know what I did or how I reacted visibly, because I was just so confused by the observation. Like, almost like on some level, I might have been trying to process it as being like something work related or in any way like a request or like anything I'd expect him to say. So I'm already confused by him commenting on my appearance. I'm confused by I'm just suddenly talking after hours of silence. I just did not react in time. I failed the QTE socially in real life. I did not pass the Turing test. And as a result, like I think back and I'm like, right, it's because like I was working full time as a YouTuber and as a waterboard spreadsheet monkey. So I was just waking up, going to work, working all day, going home, sometimes going home during my lunch break just to like do the thumbnails and stuff for my videos that I had set to upload before I left for work. Then going back to work, getting home from work, eating like a microwaved 3-minute fried rice bag, and then just working all night, recording, and then editing and rendering those videos overnight, and then waking up in the morning to upload them, and just looping, and like I probably just hadn't shaved in like a week, just falling apart physically, and so I was just like a mess, and it was repeatedly me failing as a person is interpreted as a choice, and like a statement with my appearance, and I'm like, I don't even know what I look like right now. Oh fuck.
And this is why we have HR departments to solve problems like these.
No, the HR departments are there to protect the boss.
Yeah. Well,
it could be.
Just a dumb repeating thing that's happened. Anyway, my
question 1 seems really interesting.
I never answered the question.
What was the?
I guess you didn't. Well, no. I mean, you answered it in a fucking 3-hour-long video essay.
Yeah, there's context.
Yeah, wait a second.
But yeah, like growing,
there you go.
If you don't have any gender stuff to figure out, and you're not anywhere on the ace spectrum, then figuring out you're gay is not that complicated, because basically you watch modern media and you're like, why is this woman being filmed this way? I don't understand what's going on. Why do they keep doing this? And then you get really distracted by a dude at some point, and you understand on some level why the fuck other media acts the way it does with women. You're like, oh, hang on a minute. There's something to this. And that is called furry art. That is the entire genre of here's people that are actually interested in these body types and characters in a way that the mainstream media doesn't want you to see, and so on. God. As far as my coming out goes, I made it. I chose the weirdest possible route to coming out that you could, and I don't recommend it. There's a lot of very confusing ways to process it, because one, my coming out video hit 1 million views like this month, so my B-Stars media analysis disguised as a coming out video, or no, the other way around. That's what that sentence means. And that's a lot in its own way, the way the different people react to that, but also means that like my coming out is the single loudest moment in my entire life, which is not necessarily off limits for most people anyway, but in this case it's for wildly different reasons than normal. It's just like it's absurd how big that thing is. But there's also that strange dynamic where when you're a YouTuber, it doesn't matter if you have a successful video. Normal people in real life in your world don't care about it. So like the number of times I have been in conversations about my video essay channel is very high, like with extended like family and so on, like over and over again. It comes like up as like the interesting thing that I do as a conversation piece. Like it's always brought up. People always introduce me as the person that does that stuff preemptively, and then I kind of like waffle through the conversation like, oh yeah, it's this stuff, and I'm trying to like gauge how to talk about it in terms of like without boring people with details that are too insider baseball, or like trying to even understand what they think words mean in this subject and so on. And like I've had this awkward conversation 100 times, and not once has anybody ever then like come back having watched any of my videos and had anything to say about them, because they will never watch these videos. Like it's a bizarre thing where it's brought up as the most interesting thing about me, and it's my entire identity, even though I'm not the one introducing it in the conversations. But the people that bring it up all the time and the people that they bring it up to will never look. So in a bizarre way, me having this very loud coming out that I'm now known for does not mean that it led to me coming out to anyone in the real world in any way, which is strange. And so I've had to navigate the weirdness of that, and it's the first time I've ever regretted deleting my Facebook account, because at some point I've had moments where I just wish I could just rip off the Band-Aid and just like put out a post for everyone I haven't talked to yet and just get it out there, and then everyone can fucking gossip about it or whatever, and I can just, it can be out there, and all the middle-aged women that will share the story to make sure that everyone else has heard about it, because it's the interesting thing that happened this week, will do my job for me. But I don't have Facebook because it's a horrible place, and it kept leading to like all these shitty arguments with like these like older family friends and stuff, where it's like they act one way in person and seem so nice, and then they're like vicious on Facebook because they'd never learned how to like conduct themselves. So they're in like early internet brain period where they just are vicious to semi-anonymous people, even though they're literally named the people you know. So I was out of that. So as a result, I've had to have this bizarre experience where I live nowhere near most of my extended family, and so I'm not on social media in the way that they are, and I don't live with any of them anymore, and I see them very occasionally, and a disproportionate number of times I have seen these people, someone is getting married or someone is dying. So
wow,
you really realize the process sometimes of like, oh fuck, coming out, like when you're no longer living the small town life or anything like that, like you have to do it over and over again with individual people again and again, or it'll just never like happen. And it's a bizarre conversation of like kind of like making yourself the centerpiece and becoming the attention grabbing person on some level. So like it's very hard to like know when it's appropriate to make that the topic. And it's also like there's no segue into that subject. It will always be like a weird out of nowhere revelation, and then the person you're talking to almost feels like they've been tested to like react correctly to the thing you've said that you've dumped on them out of nowhere, because there's no like way to reveal it. There's no way to warm up to the topic. So basically the whole it just became a new thing for me to be anxious about, and that's been fun. I've had one fun Christmas where someone that knew I was out drunkenly outed me to someone I hadn't outed myself to, and then it became like an emotionally guilting thing where like, why didn't you tell me sooner, both in terms of like my coming out itself, like why didn't you come out sooner in general, like that's a judgment of them specifically, and the element of like, why didn't you come out to me specifically after coming out sooner than this? And it's like, well, I don't fucking see any of you, and I don't want to text everyone this, but maybe I should have. And it's weird. Coming out's weird. That's
a weirdly selfish thing. It's not necessary to know.
It's a weird fucked up thing where the etiquette's not clear, and it's not been sure. There's no clear ways to communicate some of this stuff, and everyone does it differently. And
I don't know. I don't feel like I do checkups with my straight friends. I don't go like, hey, you guys still straight?
Yeah.
Like none of you better been gay and not told me about it. I'm gonna be so upset. You know, I'm mad.
I had the opposite. I had the opposite of that, where I went back to my hometown and like ran into a friend of mine at I say friend, more of an acquaintance of mine in the grocery store. Not someone I would like really hang out with after high school, but just like someone I was like, oh, hey, interesting. Nice seeing you. And he was like, yeah, are you still gay? And I was like, yeah, thanks.
You got
asking.
checked it on.
Like, cool. I was like, all right, yeah, that's me. Nice to see you, dude. Catch you later.
I knew he would still be.
It's such a universal problem where everyone's a toaster sexual.
I was just like, whatever, you know, it's fine. Who cares? I just yeah, it happens.
Are you still gay?
Yeah, I was gonna say fucking portal turret. Are you still gay?
It was just funny because it was like it was thrown out with just the most mundane, because we were like standing in the aisle like near the Pop-Tarts, and I was like, oh yeah, like, hey, how you doing? He's like, oh, I'm good. I was like, oh, are you still with Karina, you know, whatever? And he's like, oh, no, we broke up years ago, you know. Oh yeah, like went through basic training, things were great. And I was like, oh, that's so nice to hear. Well, it was really nice seeing you. And he's like, yeah, how about you still gay? Yep. That's great, dude. Hope you have a great day. Thanks, man. Catch you later.
Great gay day.
This is very odd conversation. He never gave me shit about it, not even in high school. Like, it wasn't like a bad thing. It was just
he's not bigoted. He's
weirdly phrased.
Yeah,
doing a checkup.
Just truly had no idea what to say. It was one of those moments of a like, yep, I have now absolved myself of the need to ever say hello to you again, because it's clear I did not make that much of an impression on you as a friend. That's fine. Cool. Good to write that off. Have a great life.
It's also, I think that's also the sort of things that you lose sleep over. But I said that. Oh my god.
Is it?
Oh yeah, for sure.
If I had
some people, anybody.
It's a bit higher than being like, yeah, like, have a nice meal. You too. It's like, are you still gay? Yeah.
It's like quite a lot.
Like the way
I
it's
love
just like,
that his
like,
brain fucking Price is Righted, scrolled the wheel through every possible question it could have hit, and it just landed on, missed 45 blank spaces and landed on, are you still gay?
Yeah, it's like just like it's like autopilot through like a well-worn like sentence structure of just being like, oh yeah, you still working at the mechanic shop? Oh yeah, no, I got fired a couple years ago. You still gay? Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
No, the mechanic shop took it from me.
I just can't help
severance package.
It's just the loudest. It's all I think about when I look at you. It's just the loudest thing. It's just the gay one. Comes right out.
To be like the most generous, you could say, what if they weren't sure? But it's still like a weird, I don't know. What's the necessity in knowing? Are you like what's your intention for asking? You know, that's my first question with any question. Why?
I think he truly was just trying to get through the conversation, you know? Nice person, speaking would be kind. And then his brain just stopped, you know? Like,
it's like it's the tone of voice. Yeah, it's just the tone, but it's the idea of like, why are they asking? Do they care? No. Okay, well, like this is just a bad question. All right, yeah, I am. See ya, bud. Like, just dumb. I love that.
All right, it's time for question one. Can we fit question one in?
Question one. Question. Life without the internet. Hi, Andrew, Keith, and Colonel RPG, and no one else.
Sorry. Life without the internet, comma. Hi, Andrew, as if it's just addressed to him, is extraordinarily funny.
When I first heard my name first, I was like, I was like, oh no.
No, it says Keith, Andrew, and Colonel. I misread it. And I just corrected. I self-corrected.
Good. I was nothing should start with my name first. It was going
to be completely frictionless until we stopped on it for a minute. I'm a child of the internet age, and I sometimes wonder if I had been born 100 years ago, what would my life be like? I can't imagine having a job or a social life without the internet. Or 200 years. So 200 years ago, we've raised the stakes now. Would I have been a scholar, reading and writing books all day? I don't know. What do you three think?
No, you'd be a serf, probably.
Only you three. What about 100 years in the future, Philip?
So 100 years in the past, you would have been probably in war of some kind. Probably didn't live past 25, maybe. 100 years in the future, same thing. You're probably going to be conscripted into a war. Probably won't live past 25. So I would say right now is the most important time of your life. The present is the best you're going to get it.
I have horrible news about what happened about 5 years ago, 100 years ago.
Yeah. It's it's tough to look past, right? The internet age is both the most amazing, but also the worst possible time to ever exist.
So you used to be much more likely to work in like a mill or textiles or some kind of factory with bad safety standards, and you'd develop health problems from a thing that you didn't know to worry about till afterwards, or maybe don't even understand while it's killing you.
Yes, most likely. Most likely not knowing it's killing you.
I would be a sculptor or a statue.
Do you get a choice in that?
I don't know how well you can opt into being a sculptor. I feel like there's a very large material cost going up front.
No, it's easy because you just need to take an apprenticeship, when you're like 9, and then
who do you know that's going to offer you an apprenticeship? It's all about who you know.
Because I live in a family of sculptors or whatever the word is. Yeah.
Sculptors.
Well, yes, that's.
I mean, if your family history are sculptors,
I'm my own grandpa.
Yeah, if I'm my own grandpa, that's what I would be my grandpa's dad though, because 100 years. Yeah, but still that's what I would be.
Well, I have bad news because my grandpa went to war.
100 years ago, I would be screwed because like half my family's Irish, which means I would have got treated like shit here. And the other half are Native Americans, which I would have got treated like shit here. So I'm really glad I wasn't born 100 years ago. In the future, I don't know.
I don't know what the future is going to be, but we're probably going to all be dead anyway. So,
I mean, 100. Well, I'll be dead now. No, will I be dead in 100 years? Maybe. I don't know. It depends. We'll see how things go. But I would assume that it's probably going to be like Batman Beyond. I'm hoping that 100 years in the future.
Finally.
Beyond. Yeah.
No, it's gonna be Mad Max. It's gonna be Mad Max.
Batman Beyond,
man, that's
Batman
so
Beyond
boring.
had furry gene splicers.
Mad Max is so boring. It is.
But they asked last so at least there's that.
Yeah, but it's just so loud and hot all the time.
I think about that whenever people are like, wow, I thought this was an NSFW channel or an SFW channel when I break out like a harness or something, and I'm like, Mad Max has like gimp suits in it.
Yeah. And they're naked in it. Like they're not wearing it's like you're wearing a gimp suit underneath something. They're not doing that. They're just
I don't remember there being many schlongs in Mad Max.
I don't think so. I don't know.
They didn't have any schlongs, but they were like
I've only seen screenshots of the first 3 movies. I've never watched them.
They're essentially just, they're wearing like a cup.
Oh, you've never watched the first 3 movies? Oh, interesting.
No.
They're good. Mad Max is a good series.
I vaguely absorbed Mad Max through cultural osmosis, and then I watched the Fury Road movie, which was great. I've watched it like 3 times.
It was. I think it is probably the best of them. But the old ones are very interesting. They're very watchable, but also interesting as cultural touchstones, as it were.
There's a lot of references in a lot of media.
Yeah, they're not the height of cinema, unfortunately. But then
what do you mean? How are they not the height of cinema? Isn't there a guy that drives around inside of like a cage with a motorcycle? And he has like a chain whip or something?
Yes, this is the end of the second movie.
Max
How's
Belmont.
that not peak cinema? Like who does that better? Yeah, I don't think that's in Citizen Kane. So I mean
Citizen Kane just has a jump scare.
Alien
that's not
Alien
FNAF has jump scares. It's not
same genre.
Same genre.
You either have Hitchcock's The Thing or
both
Alien,
of them you get jump scared by a chicken. FNAF is Citizen Kane. It's the Citizen Kane of mascot.
I like the idea of that. That's the two ticket cinema here. You go for.
I'm just saying that in the AO3 tags that will bring up both.
Chicken jump scare? Yeah, probably, I guess.
Stupid conversation. I've also never seen Citizen Kane.
And neither have I.
Citizen Kane's a good movie.
What about you, Toaster? Where are you going to be in 100 years?
In 100 years, I will be an immortal vampire, and I will be masquerading as a cool goth guy. That's what I think. And it will be the plot of every vampire novel ever. Nerval. Sorry, I was reaching for something, and my just sometimes the sounds come out. I think the spirit of this question is like, what was life like before the internet for people who are like me, terminally online gamers?
But they said 100 years and not 40.
Yeah. So believe it or not, I don't think any of us in this call existed before the internet did.
No, but we grew up
because the internet's been around for a while.
Did not exist in the similar form.
I grew up before the commercialized appropriation of the internet.
Like I'm aware of the fact that when I was growing up, there's people who were extremely online in that version of the internet, and they reference like services and websites that I never used. But for me, the internet was like a resource, like akin to like going to the library. Like to check on something. That's what the internet was. Like I went on the internet to print out a 35-page character unlock guide for Dynasty Warriors 5. I did not use it to like exist on. So it's just a very different. So I functionally grew up without the internet in that term.
When I was a kid, my parents didn't understand the jokes in Freakazoid, and they weren't too sure if it was for kids or not because they didn't understand what the internet or computers were.
The thing I was going to say about this is like my nostalgia for a world before the internet as we know it is like the internet before 2010 and like before the Facebook explosion and the great migration of old people online. Because that is actually historically when that happened.
Basically, like the mobile adoption of
the mobile generation. Yeah, exactly.
I remember being on that final cusp at the end of high school where we all had Facebook accounts and it was where we'd interact with each other, and very specifically, none of our parents were on it yet.
Yep. And the way that I think of it is just, and this is the best way to contextualize it, is like when I was young and the internet was young, quote unquote, compared to how we know it now, like I did use the internet to exist. It was my second life, but it was a second life. It was something that was far away from the life that we lived. And I went online and I found like that was how I practiced my Japanese. It was like how I was put in front of so many pieces of media that I care about, and like that's how I forged community. I have friends that I got drinks with a friend that I met in 5th grade on the internet less than 6 months ago. So like all of my oldest friends are from the internet. But the thing is that there used to be a really strong disconnect between the real world and the wired world, where you, like, if you wanted to use the internet, it was a destination you went to. If you were in the car, you could not check Twitter. If you were, at school, if you didn't have a school-issued laptop or you weren't in a computer lab, you couldn't read DeviantArt comments. Like, that's how we had to go places and see things there. And it was very much a portal to another place. And so similarly, drama and discourse and conversations were slower, were more comprehensible, and did not have the stakes that they have currently. So while there certainly were probably unhinged people and crazy people and awful stuff happening in darker corners of the internet, it had a much smaller effect on reality and felt much less threatening. So as a result, using the internet was a very nice escape, and it allowed us to get to form communities and to form friendships and to have a rest from the world that we currently live in. And I really miss that version of the internet. I really miss forums, really specifically. I miss long form. I miss going to other websites that aren't just the big 4 websites everyone uses. Stuff like that. Because it really did feel like you were walking into...
People used to make a forum instead of making a Facebook group.
Or a Discord server. And I think that Discord servers are
those
closer
conversations
to forums.
They work so differently, though.
Yeah. It's just IRC again, so it's just a chat room.
But in terms of the community, the Discord servers are very much a replacement of that feeling.
They're closer to
it. There's definitely...
When you make threads, at least.
I don't know how to describe this, but there is a little bit of joy that comes in not immediately getting a response. Sometimes it's nice to just say a thing, walk away, come back in like a couple of hours and be like, oh no, 15 people replied, crack your knuckles, put down some tea. Well, I'm going to see how wrong these idiots are and just go through it. But now it's so, seriously, but it's so difficult to do that. You say one thing on Discord and you come back in 2 hours, they're talking about peanuts and outer space. What the hell happened? What's going on here?
It doesn't replace it's just that, like, the immediacy freaks me out. Like, like Toaster talked earlier about coming out to his mom and her leaving him on red for 6 hours. That, I hate the phrase "leave on red." I hate the idea that anyone can tell if I read a message yet on any platform ever and like judge me for how long I take to respond. And I need to think about that actively in the process of engaging. The number of times I leave like notifications on my phone because I don't want to like actually open the app because that'll in some way communicate that I'm like avoiding answering the question when I'm just bad at answering things. And I need to think about it or work through my dumb brain to figure out how to respond. I've been cussed out by furries on Telegram because they found me, started trying to RP with me, and I just kind of stared at it dumbfounded, and then they called me an asshole for leaving them on red, and I'm like, I don't know who you are. What is this? What is this demand for immediacy? This is why do you expect me to talk to you immediately? Yeah. Who are you?
Yeah. We should all agree to just turn off red receipts. Like that should be a thing that we should opt into instead of being default on.
I do not default that on in any system.
I don't know how to control that.
I keep trying to figure out how to turn on each platform to see if it even can, because it's the worst feature. It's fucked up to be monitored for whether or not you're like I'm invisible on Discord now because I don't want people to know if I'm online and available to their messages, because then they're gonna like wonder. I have to think about them perceiving how long I'm not responding to their messages and stuff.
To me, that answers a question already, which is it's not important. Like a healthy individual does not need immediate response unless the situation calls for it, right? If you tell your mom, I broke my leg, can you bring my insurance card? That might need more expediency than, hey, how's it going? You know what? I'll tell you when it goes. Like, it's just, it's
2 days later.
People have forgotten that there is not an answer to everything immediately. Like you can just sometimes you just take time to get back. Sometimes people are busy. You know what? I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I don't want to talk to people while I'm taking a shit. Sometimes I want to wait, sit down, and think about it.
Yeah,
like it's just
it is truly wild how much things have transformed though since like high school. Like it's a huge like people. I don't know if people fully process the difference if they grew up past this. Of like I didn't have a cell phone in high school. And then at the end of end of high school, I got a cell phone that just was a cell phone. Like it had the numbers, and so you could type text messages by pressing one number over and over again to cycle through all of the letters that were on that number. Right. And it took like 10 minutes to type anything at anybody, and that's why people hyper abbreviated like shit and everything. And like infotech, the class where you learned like touch typing and PowerPoint. Had like an innate appeal to it because of the fact that you could like get access to a computer for an hour and play RuneScape and stuff like that, because we didn't have like multitasking distractions in school. Like there wasn't like stuff you could do besides like drawing in your notebook, which is why you see so many people draw in their notebook in movies and so on, like specifically is because like you did not have a cell phone. You could not check Telegram or Twitter or Facebook or Reddit. You were not getting fed memes, deep fried Markiplier E. You couldn't play a game. You couldn't open gacha under your desk.
Whoa,
you couldn't text people.
I brought a PSP to school all the time.
That's the thing is you had to sneak an entire mini video game console in with you and try to play that much more cumbersome device that probably opened up or something and glowed and so on. And hope that no one tried to steal it or break it while you were in school all day, because you'd potentially be known as the person who's always bringing a PSP to school and like playing it at lunch and so on. And like, because like the idea of having a PSP, which costs a fraction of as much as a cell phone, was a crazy thing to just like this big, expensive, chunky piece of technology that you're holding in your hands openly in public felt oddly risky, as opposed to like modern society where literally everybody has a cell phone all the time. And
you're in school. Kids are kids. Like
I used to go to the Cisco class during lunch sometimes because you could fuck around on the computers a bit, and that was not something you can normally do.
I think as well, really like this is something that like isn't really talked about with this, but like when we were in school, knowing how to use a computer at all was like a hack. Like it truly gave us superpowers. Because using that example of like that infotech class, like I had a computer class as well. We literally just called it computer lab.
You felt like the 1% just for being able to access fucking Microsoft Pinball.
Exactly. Or like, you know, I would do typing class and everyone else would go through this session and it would take them all 45 minutes of the class or whatever. And I would be done with it in 2 seconds because I already knew how to touch type by the time I was in school. And then would spend the rest of the time like playing RuneScape or like plugging in a flash drive or a floppy drive that I had a fucking emulator on or something. And people would come over and they'd be like, "How are you playing that?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm using a Super Nintendo emulator." And they're like, "What? So they made like you like hacked the computer to be a Super Nintendo?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I did, buddy. Like, sure." You know, I'm playing Seiken Densetsu 3 on my fucking computer lab computer because I'm an Omega hacker. Leave me alone or else I'll find naked pictures of you on the internet. Go away.
That you never took.
Like that's just exactly. Like that's just like how it worked. Like that was what it was. Whereas nowadays, I feel like if I was seen playing a game in a computer class, people would be like, "You don't play Fortnite? You're dumb." It's like, okay, well, all right, thanks. Like, it was a completely different world. Technology had a barrier of entry and a very specific intentional purpose that you used to have to opt into that now you don't.
Back when online video games were you hoping to get through a single dungeon of Diablo 2 without your dial-up giving out.
So this speaks to like the problem of both internet as well, which is that the phones basically homogenized a lot of other pieces of entertainment into one easy device. And that easy device has now become a requirement because it's replaced a bunch of other things that used to be requirements but didn't need to be with you. Like, you didn't need a computer with you at all times, and you still actually don't. But obviously, because you do need a form of communication, which is a phone, because those are useful to have, combining the two made it so like now one of them is never going to leave you. And not only does it not leave you, you now feel like you need to have it at all times. You feel like you need to have access to the internet. And like it's hard to describe because it sounds like an old man talking. But there is truly something important about waiting to do something and focusing on a thing at the time. There again, I don't have a problem with, say, like I didn't have an issue with like a Nokia phone with a Snake or Sudoku or whatever on it. But there is obviously the like, I don't know, you can with a phone, you can literally just remote play a video, like your computer. You can remotely connect to your home PC and be on there and exchange cryptocurrency, and then also like play Fortnite or whatever, and also be responding to your text message to a guy in another class. It's just like there's so much stuff you're doing in one given time. I don't know, like you're not really doing the thing. You're not doing the thing that you're in the moment. You're always doing 7 other things simultaneously. And I think that's the like nostalgia people have, is being able to have a time to just sit down and like experience a thing at any given time, rather than having to what seems like juggle and micromanage several different things. It's exhausting to be like, I have to keep up with my friends' text messages, and I need to scroll TikTok because I don't want to miss out on whatever's viral. And I also need to, like respond or need to be able to look up answers to a test that I'm taking right now. But also, like just, I don't know, man, just do one thing. Just do like,
I remember back when, and this is kind of like a horror of the old internet, was just like, that just doesn't exist anymore, is like I would go online specifically to like watch an anime or something or play a game. And then, after my 4 hours of allotted internet time that I had available before I had to get off the computer, I would minimize what I was doing and then be back to 45 messages from people. And my only response, and this was something that everyone intrinsically understood, was like, sorry, I was full screened. Like, that's just not a concept that exists anymore, because we have Discord on our phones and 27 monitors and like, nope, but sorry, I had a 12-inch fucking CRT on my desk 4:3. If I wanted to watch an anime, I hit the full screen button and couldn't see my taskbar. And if I alt tabbed out of it, it would break everything. Like, that just is what it is.
If I can't see the flashing icon in the taskbar, it's gone. It doesn't exist.
Yeah,
like there's no other way you're getting to me. And and I'm not going to watch anime with the stupid Windows bar at the bottom. Screw you. Like, I barely have enough room as it is. I'm getting all of it.
You only put up with watching anime with the please register this Windows account in the bottom corner for like 3 years. I remember being at your house constantly being like, is that going to be in the recording? Every single game for like years, everything we did on Sad Games had the fucking please register this copy of Windows in the corner of the screen the whole time, and I would just have to double check whether or not it was going to show up in the recording.
Well, they didn't take it away from me, so I'm going to keep doing it.
It's so annoying.
But like, see, there's like as time goes by, there are fun little things that can only transpire, and it's okay to like lose some of those things. It's fine that we've essentially made certain things not as commonplace anymore. But I think it's like really important to understand that it's not. There's also not a sense that it was absolutely better. It was kind of crappy that like trying to interact with a community might be more difficult because you need to find that community. You need to like literally take an adventure to go do something so basic, and that sucked. It really sucked trying to find something like a community, or just stumbling into communities and not knowing. Like I think I had talked about this like way long ago in a heart attack for Keith, is like I stumbled into Furcadia like as a child. I just on accident.
Swear to God, Andrew, it's Furcadia. Like Arcadia.
Whatever, I'm calling it that forever. Good luck. If they want to change it, they can fight me. They
want to change it.
I like that. those kinds of things are like that. Those are both in the same time, both the best and the worst parts of old internet. Nothing was more fun than like someone telling you on the playground, or you overhearing someone talk about something and going like, all right, I'll go check that out. What does that mean? And you go and look and you try to engage and you don't know what the hell's going on, but you're enamored. It's some new thing you found in the corner of the world. You're going to like almost weirdly hyper focus on it for a little bit, see what it is and interrogate it. And sometimes people walk away like that community top tier. And some people go like, oh my God, I'm never going to come back here. And it's just those are things that are so difficult to do now when everything is so consolidated to one specific platform or one specific device, right? You lose out on so many unique little experiences you get when things are separated and everyone has to have their own paths through life rather than a very streamlined and efficient way through it. It's just, I don't know. It is hard to describe the pains and sufferings one might go through when everyone has to also walk through the same broken glass. Like, yeah, if we're all, if we're all going through Twitter, we all understand that Twitter sucks. It's not a difficult conclusion. But when you say like, hey, did any of you hate Gaia online? Like suddenly that's going to spark some neurons in a certain amount of people, but other people are going to be like, what the hell does that mean? Like, there's just, those are the parts I miss. I miss those little things where someone can say something like, oh, I know what the hell that is. I know what that guy's talking about. Like, it's just, I don't know. Knowing everything is not great. I feel like the guy from Mr. Manhattan sitting on Mars crying nakedly on a rock. Like, I'm tired of it, man. I'm tired of knowing everything.
Yeah. Is that our show for the week?
I think so. That's 3 questions. I would say pretty congratulations to us. Is it 4? I thought it was 3.
Because we answered our own question at the beginning.
Oh, okay. Okay.
What?
Good for us. We created our own problem and solved
it. What do you mean?
I want to go off on a recommendation.
Oh, okay.
I want to go off on a recommendation that's really easy and really quick. If you all watched Pluto on Netflix by Urasawa Naoki, it was pretty good. If you want to watch another show by him that is also really good, go watch Monster. It's very, very good. Watch it. It's a good anime. It's on Netflix. Go watch it.
Is Monster on Netflix?
Monster's on Netflix now. Yeah. It is also on the Internet Archive in better quality. Maybe
also there. With Monster, do not apply the 3-episode rule. Do not do that. You need to you need to get through it. Do not like it's gonna
got through half of it.
It's gonna suck because it's a series that just keeps boiling. You gotta go through it. Like
3-episode.
I don't know how to explain this. Like
it's 50-something episodes. I watched like half of it.
It's 74 episodes.
It's long. Yeah.
I have seen it all before, but I have been rewatching it, and it is so nice to watch an anime.
It is
brainy, and I didn't get half of it.
Just let it cook. That's all I have to say. Let Monster cook. It's fine.
But I knew I was going to talk about it, and Andrew was going to say like, "Yeah, hell yeah," because Monster is it's one of the classics. It's great.
It's so good. But I also did jump into it being like, I watched 3 episodes, like, I'm not watching this shit. This is garbage. And then I walked away for years, and then came back. I was like, oh, I was wrong.
I was so wrong.
No.
Yeah. It is the basic pitch of Monster is that it is for all intents and purposes a slow-paced live action drama about a doctor who saves a young boy in his childhood through an operation, and then the boy grows up to become a serial killer. But it's very interesting, and even though it is anime, it is not very anime. It is like watching an HBO show or a live action, like a prestige live action drama.
Yes.
It just happens to be animated. And it is just very excellent. It is highly worth watching.
Oh God, it does have 74 episodes all listed as one season.
Yeah.
Yep.
No,
every single thumbnail is a middle distance sort of close up of a person just staring at the screen.
Yeah.
It's literally
the same thumbnail for 74 episodes.
That's just how
it is mostly a show about people talking to each other, which is just so wonderful.
It's like if YouTube generated thumbnails of Star Trek Next Generation, and it would just be the same thumbnail every time. That's incredible.
It's highly good though. And if you want to read a manga by the same author that's also really good, one of my favorite manga of all time is Urasawa Naoki's Billy Bat, which is basically a story about what if Mickey Mouse happened to maybe be a iconic symbol that existed throughout all of history, and what the conspiracy behind that actually means. That's a fucking great manga too.
That sounds pretty good.
The legend of the three circles.
Yeah.
Just all throughout history.
I mean,
like akin to like all these cultures coming up with dragons independently, but they all came up with Mickey Mouse.
Yes, literally. Yes. That is it. But what if that was a conspiracy? Is the plot of Billy Bat, and it is so good.
Billy Bat.
Read Billy Bat to learn how Mickey Mouse is responsible for the murder of JFK. That's been our show, everyone. Bye.
That's insane. I need more absurd shows. I need more time to consume.
Welcome to anime. We've got a lot of it.
What the fuck is Captain Laserhawk, and why does it have